Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Speculation Alley. Happy Halloween. I hope you had a good one. This is me, A-Bomb, with, of course, my co-host, brother from another mother, longtime friend, Crypto Dilly. What's going on, brother?
What's going on? GM.
Yeah, GM. That was a sick party that we actually went to. Crypto Dilly Little Alpha was actually recently in LA, and we went to party it up. So go check our Twitters and for some of the alpha on those photos and whatnot. But what are we getting into today? What I think you have some alpha for us. If not, just some pure speculation. What do we have?
Dude, everything is all pure speculation. But let's jump right into it. Obviously, today we're going to be talking about Wagmi-san's tweet from October 20th. Obviously there's a lot to unpack in just this photo right here. When you look at the image, we have a new character that's coming up, right? And obviously the alpha is that she's not wearing pants. I mean, Wagmi-san doesn't know how to make pants, but the rest of the outfit is obviously complete. But there's a few different things that like the community has highlighted, and that's obviously the recycling bin down here at the bottom. And then obviously you have Ranga, you have Chimpers and Deadfellas on these Kevlar vests. And then there's going to be, I'm going to talk a little bit about the shoes that she's wearing as well. But you want to jump into the recycling speculation?
Yeah. So I think really the biggest thing to take from this more than the actual visual is the text that has, that accompanied the visual, which is New Tokyo is in ruins, but one person's rubble is another's gold. There's opportunity here to close the loop once I get set up. So this is very interesting in the sense of like another shop, like once I get set up, and maybe like another, I don't know, some sort of utility place where you can go and craft or maybe recycle items. Will it be Wagmi-san's shop? I don't know. That's some of the speculation that is still kind of roaming around as far as who's going to be recycling these. It looks like this character would be probably the main one to do so, but what kind of recycling are we going to see? Does that mean crafted items? Does it include Genesis items? And what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, personally, I think that you see level 2 combat gear like in the background, right? So my mind immediately goes to like combat gear. We already know that we're going to have a level 2 materials. This is alpha that was actually said to Mebinetta from Figgy, right? I'm going to throw that out there.
We do have alpha. You do have alpha then. It's not just speculation. There is alpha.
Hey, well, I mean, who knows if it's actually true, right? But what I am saying, though, is that I feel with that information, like we know that level 2 items are the combat gear, right? And so far, the only way that you've been able to actually get combat gear is by opening a combat crate that then releases the blanks, right? So if we know that there's a possibility for materials, well, now you have this opportunity to have that in cycle. But also, let's say that the combat gear, the way it's priced and everything that's out there right now, what if the whole idea behind recycling isn't just for level 2 items? What if it's also level 1 and you can recycle a level 2 or a level 1, and you can take your PFP, you can buy up a floor item that completes your set, right? And you now can put your PFP on that item. That makes so much sense in the grand scheme of things because it's going to make every item a lot more valuable to individuals, similar to kind of what we talked about with like charged objects. Like when you have something that obviously is depicting your PFP, that's instantly more valuable than some random person's mutant ape on a day pack, right? That you can never then, create a, physical from or do anything with because you don't actually own the IP, right?
Interesting. So you just like opened up some more speculation in my mind now where it's, okay, let's say this item that has already been crafted, right, for this PFP, let's say that does get burnt or recycled. Is that person that owns that IP that was on that day pack or like whatever it was, is that now reopened to be able to be crafted, or is that shit gone? Like, is that gone for good?
Dude, that's a really good question. And
you got me thinking, baby.
To think about the smart contract that would have to enable that and be able to like open and close those doors. They're obviously right now it's like an open loop and you can just kind of like craft and whatever, and then once it's crafted it's in the collection. But I think it would make sense that still open, right? Like once
Right.
you recycle it and it's basically burned and creates a new item, then the circulation, like if you have that mutant ape, now if somebody, recycled it and they turned it in, yeah, that opportunity is now there for you. And I have a few friends that have bought, a PFP, and they're like, man, like 3 things have already been crafted on this. Like I'm never going to complete my set. Right. But that also creates that opportunity with arbitrage, right? Where, let's say that there is a lot of crafting and somebody does have that PFP and you tend to hold, their day pack and their whatever to complete their set. Well, if that slot is filled and somebody's trying to recycle to get to that, it's still not going to be an opportunity for them because it's already part of the collection.
Right. Right. So that's a deep rabbit hole right there then, really, because another element of this is kind of what you brought up earlier, which is like, can you go grab something like there's a pair of high tops that are under like 0.5 right now, right? Like on crafted, but the blank pair of high tops is like almost 1.5 ETH. Right. So, or 1 ETH. Right. So at the end of the day, if it's that much and you can go cop these crafted, maybe pay a little ape, right, for this transaction or this like, recycling effect to take place. And then at the end of it, you get what would have cost you close to 1 ETH plus whatever, and it's like 0.1 almost or 28 to put your PFP on that blank after you purchase it or craft it and whatnot. So it's interesting, the arbitrage there as well, where you could potentially go grab something on the floor that is priced higher as a blank or even in the materials it would take to craft that item, and then therefore be sort of making some smart moves on that.
I think the interesting part of that, though, is that from a macroeconomic scale, right, like it will even everything out, right? Eventually, like the idea is to actually make the Genesis 10 KTF collection outvalue the stockroom and all these other like Genesis or legacy collections that are essentially being launched. And so I think this proposes that opportunity because the biggest issue that you have right now with the 10 KTF collection is that nobody wants to buy somebody else's branded items, right? There's 22,222 items. And if you have a day pack that has your mutant ape on it, that's cool. I can buy that. But like, I would much rather mint and craft mine onto an item than buy somebody else's mutant ape, right? If I have that means to be able to do so, right? And you get the bonuses in Battletown.
Well, that's that loop closing, I think, is what you're talking about. Where, like, they have, like, I don't think they want all of these crafted items to be essentially, like, out on the market. They don't want to flood. They don't want to dilute the materials because that would then, again, like, take away value from the OGs that would either airdrop these items or purchase these off of secondary at a set price, and then they flood that, and that's going to upset some folks. So this is a smart mechanic, I think, that they're playing with.
Here's the other thing, though. I think that, this character, notice it's not Wagmi-san, and it's like, I think this is going to open up another part of New Tokyo where you meet with this mysterious figure, and it's a limited time to create urgency for you to actually go in and craft that. And it'll clean up those items that are in people's wallets that are OGs and paying attention. Those are going to get recycled and they're going to be back and they're going to be higher value, right? Then all the muck and all the extra items that are still in the collection that people maybe have it in a dead wallet or, maybe they're a Bored Ape and they found out about the project. They couldn't understand it. So those are just sitting in their wallet and they have never come back to 10 KTF.
Right.
Like it'll show a lot of that stuff. And what's really interesting about what I just said, though, is if it's in the dead wallet or it's somebody who's not paying attention, guess what? They're probably not selling and it's probably not listed, right? So it creates that, floor price opportunity, right? And I don't really like to talk about that too much, but it's just interesting, like when you get into that, thinking about it from a business perspective and the way that they're actually introducing mechanics to create this stuff, like, are they doing this along the storyline? Like, oh, this would actually alleviate this here. This would do that. Or was this planned all along? And that's something that's really interesting to get into because Mebinetta and Diamond Hands were even talking about like this a year ago. But it was obviously a different kind of like conversation, but it was about recycling, right? And being able to reuse these items.
Yeah, it was like bleaching. Like you could bleach the item, almost like the serum effect, like that apes did, like mutating something, but like changing this whatever the IP was into something else. So yeah, that concept where you could essentially bleach this crafted item to make it a blank again, and then plaster a different IP on there. But what's interesting is when. So I have a theory behind this, and I'm going to ask your thoughts on it. But I would imagine since we also see three PFPs associated with this tweet. So we see Deadfellows, Chimpers, and Renga. So when would this take place? And when it would, you would assume that these PFPs that were then in the background there would come into effect as well. And my theory on this is beginning of season 2. I think season 2, that's how we start off. We start off by ingratiating a few more PFPs into the project. And as well, we have this new flood of like kind of new crafting, but it's recycled crafting, I guess, that's taking place. That's not only new for the new people that came, but new for the OGs that have been here. This is like a community sort of like new piece of the pie that no one's tried and that we all get to partake in together, which in my opinion would be the beginning of season 2. What are your thoughts?
No, I think you're right on. I was even going to go a little bit further. Like, what if, the only ones that could actually do this recycling mechanic is level 1 items, and it opens that door for Chimpers and Ranga and Deadfellas to actually get a level 1 item, because at this point in time, the only way that they're going to be able to do so is if they go into the stock room and purchase a blank, which obviously are being held by a lot of the people that are OGs or, just holding out because of the arbitrage opportunities there, right? So I think this opens a door that's going to even things out and make it so that way all these new coming projects are going to be able to actually capitalize and be a part of the ecosystem at a good enough price point that it makes sense, right? And obviously everybody's trying to optimize their loadouts for Battletown, and this gives them that opportunity as well. But you also have to think like what I am thinking about, which is I believe that materials are in play. I think that they're going to come, and I've been saying this, Genesis is king. I think that we're going to get materials, level 2 materials at the time that these new projects are added. And I think that the beginning of season 2 makes a lot of sense, especially because there's no conflict right now, right? There has to be peace in New Tokyo is what we've seen in the past for them to be able to introduce these new projects into the ecosystem. And what's crazy is that this is an ever expanding ecosystem. So they got to get these mechanics right in the beginning. And that's what we're actually a part of right now. It's like we are like building this. We're building the airplane as we're in flight, and we're a part of that journey, and we are the stars, right? And that's what's super exciting about this, the way that they're building this, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, and like the side of crafting that goes like even ever deeper with this rabbit hole is, let's say you buy an epic, right? A crafted epic item, but that item, let's say, if it were essentially like recycled and let's say it's a snapback. Let's say you have an epic snapback and it's for this PFP that you don't own, that you bought off of secondary, but you own a PFP and you're like, yo, I want to put my PFP on this snapback in the recycled form mechanic. Is it going to still be epic? And
that's the question, right?
That's the fucking question.
I personally think that what they did with combat crates and then you actually crafting your PFP onto those items without knowing rarity beforehand was genius. And I think that they'll continue something similar to that. And I think we're going to find out quickly. A few people are going to figure it out that, you obviously recycle this and it stays that rarity, or you recycle this and it completely changes the rarity. And as soon as we see a few people do that, that's whenever you're going to have a baseline. I don't see, and this is speculation, I do not see anybody, getting an epic and recycling that very quickly. They're going to wait and see what people do and then see what's going on. And then maybe they'll make that attempt. But I think that it's not going to be like that. I think that you're going to be buying the common items and then, hoping that you craft an epic or an uncommon or something within the collection.
See, because you got to think the team has to have thought about this, right? Like we're not, I don't think I'm smarter than Michael Figge. Okay. So I think that they have had this conversation. So what if you do essentially take an item, like let's say if you had an epic, right? You get 2 materials, 2 random level 1 materials. So you can turn this into a blank, right? But it's not going to stay epic, standard. So in exchange for you losing that epic value, right? And also like making epics go higher in scarcity, you would get items for that, right? So maybe you get
That's
like
interesting.
cotton cloth or a roll of rubber to accompany this downgrade of it just becoming a blank. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, that's some deep speculation. I mean, that's like
That's
getting
some
kind of in
shit,
the
right?
weeds a little bit, in my opinion.
Right?
But I think that's,
Yes.
I think it's possible. Anything's possible right now.
Well,
And
that's what I mean. Like they had to have talked about it at least, right? Like they have to have some sort of concept of like, okay, if somebody takes an epic that's crafted and they want to put their PFP on this, what happens? Like,
well, there's two things right here with where we're at. I think one thing that's interesting is what you're talking about, the way that the rarity scoring is going to change by recycling. The second part, in my opinion, is, you know, all these Genesis items, are they going to be eligible for crafting, right, or recycling, right? Because I wouldn't think that they would want to reduce that supply by any means. And imagine if you can get a Ranga and you could recycle and make that a Genesis now, like that changes everything as far as the value of Genesis, right? And
oh yeah,
it's been long perceived that it's like the most valuable because Genesis is king, but it might actually be that way, because what we want is if there is a supply drop at the same time that this recycling is launched, then it will prove that Genesis is king and it's worthwhile, but it also still like steadies that level playing field where now Chimpers and Deadfellas and, you know, these different parent projects have an opportunity to have a Genesis item, right?
that
They actually relate to, right? So
that would be wild if that
it would be
happens.
wild. But I think that is in a line of thinking that I'm in, and it opens a lot of doors, it creates a lot of opportunity, and it still makes Genesis more valuable than all the crafted items within the collection. The biggest alpha that I'm going to leave right here, though, is that Gucci Grails are extremely undervalued, in my opinion, whenever it comes to Battletown, because you can go and pick up like all these different slots items that do have a huge rarity advantage and apply them with your Gucci Grail and still get the multipliers. And
Yes,
that
sir.
is something a lot of people miss. So I'm going to leave that in the middle of the video right here.
Well, I think it's also because like Gucci's weren't able to be put on the physical hoodies as of recently, right? Like there's certain
IP rights.
perks. Yeah, exactly. There's certain perks in the sense of Battletown, but in the sense of like, I don't know, like utility as far as like it being an actual PFP for you that you own. I don't know, unless you own the core IP to that, right? But
and I do.
Said, right. Well, there you go.
I do for both my Gucci's, but
well,
like I'm not able to craft that either. So I mean, there's obviously something even deeper probably with Gucci. But I mean, one thing we haven't talked about is that the Gucci material is a level 1 material that we haven't been able to utilize yet. So I think that we're going to see that come into play too. And that's where the material idea really comes full circle for me. It's like if we are airdropped level 2 materials at the time that recycling opens up and we're able to craft these items and you're able to throw in your Gucci material to make it Guccified, right? Now you have a Gucci snapback or you got a Gucci day pack and it was recycled. Maybe you could actually do the recycling with the extra cloth added in, and it makes it like extra dope. And maybe that opens the door for somebody even like me that already has a full set to go back and add Gucci material onto my full set, because it's like, that is sick, right?
Yeah. Which one would you do? Would you add it to like your shoes, your high tops, or what?
I don't know. I mean, it really depends on the utility, right?
Right. Let's talk utility, baby. All right. Well, let's get into the next part of this then, which is those shoes that this character was wearing, and your thoughts on that, because I know you had some cat reflexes.
I think that we've seen these shoes, you know, like throughout the timeline, right? We've seen him in the back of Wagmi-san in his shop during the Puma announcement. So if you go back to that, and I'll place that right here, but the Pumas are right there in the background. I think that these are Puma shoes, and what's really interesting is that the tongue on the tag, it looks like the We Knew brand, right? So I think that they're going to be doing a lot of collaborations with Puma, and I think that even during this drop, it may be that we get this blank that I speculated on in our previous Puma video. I think there's an opportunity for us to actually open that door and have some different types of high tops maybe, right? And so seeing that they're white, seeing that they resemble very similar to the Slipstream, I think this is a nod to Puma with this right here, that we're going to see something more here coming up in season 2.
Well, in their ad, we saw like, you know, the planets for the world of Winneman, that like that rarity effect on the actual shoe in that ad. So again, if we're seeing customized hoodies right now, and the next step, in my opinion, we have seen the bags. We saw the bags IRL and in FTLA. We've seen the hats. What if shoes? Like, what if Puma is going to manufacture some of these shoes, and the same way that, you know, OG's got this token drop, the same thing you're talking about for the physical hoodies. What if we get that for Puma Slipstream shoes, where you can print your IP on some shoes? Like, that's going to be sick.
I think that's a strong possibility. I mean, I think Puma right now, with the way that their project is rolling everything out, they just did the Puma materializer tokens, right? Where I think that was testing the way that they would actually even roll out something like this to get proper and appropriate sizing for mass number of people. And they did a short run, right? They did 2,000 of each different style, which is obviously a lot larger than one-of-one sneakers with IP rights, right? But it's a lot different than manufacturing, you know, let's say 10,000 sneakers of this exact same make and model, and then putting the wrapper or IP on that. That's a lot different of a game, but having the sizing and all the production, do everything proper and make it come out proper. I think that's the thing that they're trying to nail down right now. And this first run that they're doing with the Puma, you know, community at large. And I was fortunate enough to get them like the Puma materializer. I have 2 of them, and like with the Nitro and the different style, it's like something where you can really see Puma doing this at a larger scale, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, like the way that they're breaking it down, like you said, with the mechanics and sort of what we've discussed, like with Jesse in our past episodes, where it's a way for, you know, companies to not have as much overhead left over and product, and know exactly the amount that they're going to sell, as We Knew did with the combat crates. Like, they were off by like 11, and they sold over like 11,000 of those, or they were off by like 0.1%, whatever it was. But that's insane. That's insane to understand your demographics, like want and, like, you know, I guess what is it, supply and demand, essentially at its core.
It's interesting, even with the comfy tokens, right? Obviously, what we're seeing with the way that 10KTF just did their launch, we're seeing the exact same thing, where you get a comfy token, you burn the token, and you're able to pick out your size, your, you know, IP, and all of that, right? And with doing that, it creates an opportunity not only for the company to make money on the initial drop, but then they can actually open it up to the general population, or just holders, right? Because they're expanding and ever creating a larger ecosystem. But what Web2 apparel company wouldn't want their hand in that, right? When you think about where 10KTF is going at a larger scale, like, I would be chomping at the bit to be that partner. Now expectations are high, and you got to deliver, right? And so I think that's what's interesting, is everything that we are seeing 10KTF do, it seems like it's tested previously in some way, right, with some mechanic. And I think what I've been saying all along is we have Yuga Labs in the other side. I definitely think the storytelling mechanic and everything that's going on there, they've taken some words of wisdom from Wagmi-san, if you will.
Yeah, I agree with that heavily. I think that sort of watching some of these other companies, the Web2 companies, dip their toes, and the way that they're getting involved, and the mechanics that they're implementing into these, I guess, these businesses, is very much like 10KTF style, right? Like, you know, you find your core fans, you get them involved, you let them know about this exclusive drop. If you want to get in on board, you can. And that's where you need to start in sort of a new frontier, in my opinion, because, again, as I've said before, no one's going to come to the metaverse to watch a concert of somebody they don't know. But if they're a crazy Harry Styles fan and they've never been in the metaverse, they'll go because of Harry. They just want to see Harry. So, like, it's wild that, like, that when that does happen, though, like when you see like a major artist that does start wearing some of these clothes and some of the, like, the comfy hoodies or like the Slipstreams and whatnot, and these are one of one or extreme scarcity items, that's when it's going to start, like, people are actually going to be like, okay, like, I get it. Like, and again, it's just culture. That's literally what it is. It's culture, and usually the biggest effects of culture that happen are started by very small groups of people. So
yeah,
it's interesting.
I mean, that is something that Herman Narella literally talks about in his book, Virtual Societies. And he talks about how you create this. And that's what's something that's super fascinating about all the cross-pollination and interoperability with everything that's being built out. And like, brands have a huge opportunity here. And I think you're right. Like, once a lot of celebrities and a lot more people are actually wearing this stuff, it's going to catch a lot of attention. And we already have the attention of a lot of like boutiques or like limited apparel brands that are, it's caught their attention, right? And they're usually at the forefront of innovation. I would say gamers, musicians, and like Bobby Hundreds, right? Like a great example of somebody that rolled out an NFT collection at the, like, I would say the peak of the bull run, and capitalized on being able to build out his brand further and attracting the Web3 community. And it's a large community. It's going to grow as people actually understand blockchain technology. And it might be a bumpy ride the same way that Bitcoin was whenever it got started, right? It took a lot of time for a lot of people to really adopt it and be okay with putting their money into that vehicle, right? But one other thing that I wanted to bring up is Kagami's being maybe the outlet to become, or I guess, to getting physicals, right? This has been a theory that's passed around the community recently. It's like we were able to claim the Kagami, and then with that claimed Kagami, once you redeemed it, you also got a comfy token, right? Immediate utility for claiming your Kagami, and there's only 893 of them, and there's still quite a few that have not been claimed, right? So with that door being opened, perhaps the massive utility that's underlying, that's not been talked about or been said by the team, is that future, physical drops are going to come from having a physical Kagami.
That would be pretty sick. I would be very jazzed about that because I did claim my Kagami. So that would be dope. But that being said, I mean, I think we've hit this subject pretty good, but I guess the last thing I'd ask is, we said season 2 is when all it's going to happen. So when's season 2?
Dude, never. I'm just kidding. I think a month of time off is really like that opportunity for them to kind of recalibrate and come back with full force. I really think it's going to start here pretty soon. And I think with obviously comfy hoodies and Kagamis, I guess the expected dates for delivery is beginning of January. So I think 2023 is going to be a hell of a year. I'm super stoked about 10KTF and what they're going to roll out, like what brands are going to come in. I think every year they're going to do more collaborations, more partnerships with different brands in Web 2. And I'm excited to see, the caliber of different companies that are coming into the space, right? Obviously, we've been working with a lot of apparel companies, but that doesn't leave out toys or other opportunities. Like Deadfellas has been killing it. They have done collaborations with Zappos lighters. You've seen them with Steve Aoki, Wrangler, like all these different brands. And once you open that door, Web3 is a hell of an opportunity. The thing I love about 10KTF and what they've been doing, though, is they lead us on and they tell it through story week after week, right? So I think these little images that they've leaked for us now, that's all alpha in plain sight. We're going to be circling back to these 6 months from now, whenever the Puma blanks drop, and we're going to be like, Dylan was off on the timeline, but look at that. He got it.
Yes, I love it. Well, as long as you're right, bro, because I'm hedging all my bets off of every word you say. So it's all.
Yeah, I just fully doxed myself there too. You're welcome.
Yeah. All right, guys. I think that's it for us. We're going to leave you with that speculation. Hopefully recycling soon, Chimpers, Ranga, Deadfellas soon, and season 2 soon.
Mutant
soon.
Hounds, baby. They're coming too.
Mutant Hounds, let's go.
Be on the lookout for the Mutant Cartel. Big shout out. The mayor is in town. That just launched today on Halloween. Like, congratulations, Ben Mayor White. He solid OG in the 10KTF community, moving up, doing his thing.
All right, guys. Appreciate you. Have a nice day.
Peace.